And that takes us to the main event around 11:30 p.m. Jon Moxley and MJF. But you know what? Didn't matter. This crowd was really into this, and they had their hometown favorite, Newark's own MJF.
Close enough.
By way of Plainsview, New York.
An hour and some.
So, I mean, this was all laid out of MJF working as the babyface and Moxley knowing I'm going to be dude, he's given the middle finger to the camera backstage as he's walking out with Regal. And then when the crowd turned on him, he just, I don't even want to say ran with it. It's like, I think they all went in knowing what this reaction was going to be. And they structured the match like that. Like, these were Moxley heel spots and MJF babyface spots. At times, like, almost over the top. Like just stuff that was just so over the top.
The whole feud was built with MJF, you know, being a babyface, and it wasn't like Moxley was doing anything heelish in the build-up to it. But the only question while we got to the night was whether or not the crowd took to the MJF babyface turn, and boy did they. Like, I wonder if he didn't do any of the babyface stuff, if they would have still been pro MJF. Probably they would have. They would have cheered MJF even if he was a full heel, but because they did all the babyface stuff, it took it over the top even more.
And I know you can make the argument that, you know, that big, like you look at companies when they break through, it's like off the back of like a big baby face just cutting through and reaching a new audience. And MJF could certainly be that guy. Yeah. So you can look at that of, you know, you might have had like this thing that was ready to explode. I also look at it that this guy will get that run at the same time. But it's something, you know, you can certainly debate. But the match starts off. MJF has this audience in the palm of his hand. He's in the Fargo strut.
He did every babyface cliche.
He got it all out of his system, knowing where things were going after. So,
I almost felt it was like...
It was.
He was making fun of us.
He was.
He was making fun of, like, you idiots. I'm going to pull out every cheesy... like 80s, you know, babyface. Like, I'm gonna do dusty punches. You're gonna go crazy. You know, I'm gonna like I don't what else did he do? 10 like the 10 smashes in the corner, like to an opponent's head, and you guys are gonna fall for it. Like he's just kind of laughing.
I mean, for him, it's like to work just a super babyface match.
Yeah.
Like it was probably a lot of fun just to change it up like that, like so heavily like this after, you know, the build up. So Moxley does First, MJF delivers a tombstone on the edge of the apron, and then later, Moxley does a tombstone off the apron through a table on the floor.
So the tombstone on the apron hurt his knee, right? MJF's knee, I believe.
And that's where Moxley starts to target the knee for the rest of the match. Yeah, so after this tombstone...
Another kind of like babyface, you know, cliche. Like, babyface gets an injured body part, and Mox, unusual, but not unusual. Like, he targets the injured body part.
And when he hits that tombstone, he rolls into the ring, willing to take the count-out victory.
Yes, I
and the crowd is just latching onto it. It's like... Dude, this was all structured, like, with this in mind. Like, they knew what they were doing.
For MJF to do the count-out tease to come back in.
Everything to just milk it. So, MJF makes it in. He's hit with the paradigm shift. And then the knee is attacked. Figure 4 by Moxley. And I'm just constantly... MJF is just working so hard here as the babyface. And then there's a paradigm shift off the turnbuckle. MJF holds on to the rope to break the count. And then MJF... pulls Bryce Remsburg in front as a shield, so he goes down. William Regal walks down to the ringside area, and MJF has the dynamite ring when Paul Turner runs down, and Moxley applies a choke. They run into Turner, so he's out, and Moxley gets the bulldog choke applied, and MJF taps out. And this is sort of just, you know, telegraphing like where this is like an out for Moxley to revisit this down the road. But then Regal slips the knucks into MJF. He takes the brass knucks, clocks Moxley. He climbs on top. The referee comes to 1, 2, 3. MJF wins the AEW championship as Regal walks off. And dude, Moxley just lay there for like the pay-per-view goes off the air. He is out cold in the middle of this ring. And that concluded the show.
Yes, it did. I'm just trying to bring up the image of him as a champion. But anyway, that's
and he cemented his heel turn at the press conference.
Yeah, so the press conference was absolutely required viewing for everybody, and not for, you know, any sort of controversial reason. But MJF did come out and he basically cut a full-on heel promo saying, "I duped you guys with everything I did over the past month. You guys actually thought I was putting over this guy here," and pointing at Tony Khan, and went back to being his full heel self. I thought the match was a wonderful kind of study of, what makes a babyface in a traditional pro wrestling match.
Two pros, like, honestly, like, I thought this was really laid out. It was a really fun match, the way it was laid out with the crowd. It was cool to watch Moxley work a different style.
Yeah, but in particular, I felt like, honestly, it at points started to feel very over the top with MJF doing so many babyface things that I feel like it almost provides like a beginner a textbook on some great babyface tools for them to use, because I can't say it was ineffective. I think there was a good section of the audience that was, willing to buy that this was a full-on MJF babyface turn that we had just seen, or we were, going to see cemented.
It was a great tool of taking something the audience wanted and giving that to them, like playing off of that desire with this kind of a delivery at the end. Like it was really well thought out, and we throughout this idea, like plenty of people looked at this. I thought it was executed really well. I thought it was a great turn at the end. You had some intrigue to hear from Regal on Wednesday. Yeah. You did this turn. I'm not a big fan of the angles at the press conferences. I do feel those things should be separate, but that was your
in wrestling though, like
I get
it's
it.
going to be a combination. And I think like us certainly, and I think the audience is able to tell when you have a person speaking from the heart and when you have a person trying to work a story, And I think with an MJF, we have to understand every time he's in front of a camera, every time he's on a microphone, every time he's on Twitter, there's always going to be the potential of him being in character. And it made for like a nice little kind of like, scene at the end. That was almost just epilogue to the entire thing. Great match for me from like, I think, like a psychology standpoint.
Yes.
Like just again, understanding how a guy this smart is able to manipulate a crowd into potentially thinking that he's a babyface, and also on Mox's end, how he's able to kind of play with all this like great heel energy that was on his side. The Regal turn I thought was teased well, and they delivered. It was not a case where I felt like they were teasing just to kind of swerve you on the pay-per-view. It's a story that ultimately makes sense, Here's a guy who like turned MJF down, motivated him to become his best self, and now MJF...
There was no email. The email said, hey, I've got a great idea.
No, there has to be the email. That has to be at least a minor truth. But he finally impressed Regal. He finally impressed the guy that he couldn't. And I'm waiting to hear the William Regal promo, to hear his reasoning for doing this.
That should be the start of Dynamite, I think, is those two coming out. And those two could be your great, like, Bockwinkel Heenan combo for
it's
some
almost
time.
Too much, isn't it? Like, like what
it's okay. It's okay. I think you could have a lot of fun with this stuff.
So nothing from the Firm. So that was all, his way of, I guess, breaking up with the Firm, but was it also meant to be misdirection in any way? Like
I don't know. The Firm to me has not been a success.
Yeah.
I just feel like they feel very factory.
Yeah, they certainly do without MJF. It's just
I want a clean break from the Firm. I just don't think he works with that group. And it just to me is too much of just, I let them beat the shit out of me, and then I beat the shit out of them, and it was all a ploy. It's like I'm tapped out.
No, it was clearly not a ploy, right?
Yeah, it's like I don't know, to just say it was all a plan.
No, I don't think it was. Like, I think he legitimately broke up with them, right? Because they had no involvement.
That's what I'm saying. I think it should be. Yeah.
Yeah, but it also makes you wonder, like, when did plans change? Because I have to imagine when MJF was, introduced with the Firm, that they weren't just going to break them up.
I'm sure they had much bigger plans for them, but I don't know. Also, at the end of this, I mean, this would be a natural... Like, I think Moxley should probably go away for some time. He gets his vacation. He gets his fishing vacation at this point. I think it was after the pay-per-view ended. Like, he's laid out. The other BCC members came out to check on him. They all hugged. And then we got the thank you... After they booed him for the whole match... Thank you, Moxley. And then
man, it's part of the show. Like,
they know
the audience is on the show.
And then they played Happy Trails at the end. So I thought that was like a tip-off.
Wow.
Like, Moxley should go away.
Yeah.
And it's this, like, cloud of, like, how will he respond? Because you know he will. Yep. And he's off plotting to come back in January. Like, give him a break.
And how are the Blackpool Combat Club going to respond to William Regal no longer being a part of the stable?
Yeah, you could have him in disarray. It's like, you had Danielson and Claudio come to blows, and then Yuta's trying to, like, get back on track.
Is the group still.
I mean, you could tell a story, and then Moxley coming back and like reunite the group.
Yeah, but I mean, they're named after his birthplace. You know, or did they change the name?
Maybe they'll rebrand. Maybe they'll be the Aberdeen Combat Club.
Doesn't sound nearly as cool.
The Swiss Beats.
Yeah, don't the Swiss Beats. Yeah.
Okay.
Don't be taken.